What's up everyone, this is Dave LeClaire with MakeUseOf.com, and today we're here to break down the Google Home Max, which is Google's $400 smart home speaker, which sits at the top of the Google Home line above the standard Google Home and the Google Home Mini. Now, is this $400 speaker worth picking up? If you're an audiophile, is this going to hit what you want it to hit? Or is this going to be a little bit too low in the sound quality? If you're a casual music listener, is it worth spending $400? We're going to figure out those questions right now. So the first thing we need to talk about with the Max is the sound quality. I will say that I am not a huge audiophile. I like my music to sound good, but I'm not the type of person who's going to go out and spend $2,000 on a booming sound system. Currently, I use a pair of Audio-Technica headphones to listen to my music, and I listen to just a standard Google Home. So that kind of gives you an idea of where I'm at. Now, compared to either of those, the Google Home Max blows them out of the water. I mean, the bass is really thump. The highs are really clean, although sometimes they're a little piercing. There's a little bit too much highs. The two tweeters maybe might push a little bit too hard, but that's okay. It's a very minor gripe, and you only really notice it if you turn the volume up to max volume, which most of the time you're not going to do unless you're having a party because it is extremely loud. All in all, I got to say the sound quality is fantastic, though there are a couple speakers on the market that don't have the voice control elements that actually sound a little bit better. The two main models are the Sonos Play 5 and the Bose SoundTouch 30. Those are both $500. They don't have the voice control speakers, but in terms of sound quality, they're a little bit better in terms of sound, but not much. And they also are $100 more. In terms of actual voice controlled models, there's really no comparison. So if you really want the smart connected voice controls and you want it to have really good sound, the Max is kind of your only choice. Some other cool features of the Google Home Max include automatic equalization. So it actually detects the room and it adjusts the highs and lows automatically. You don't have to worry about it. So it's going to do what it thinks is best for the room in which you're listening to music, which is a really cool feature. Another feature that's really cool is Bluetooth. I know it sounds simple, Bluetooth, but when the Google Home first came out, it didn't have that. It does now. So you can connect your phone and you can play your music through or podcasts through apps that don't support Google Cast. For me personally, I use iCatcher for my podcast, and that does not have Google Cast support. So I was able to keep my standard podcast app and keep listening to them on the Max or my original Google Home now that Bluetooth's been added, which is awesome. It's a small thing, but it's pretty cool. Also, the front of the Google Home is covered with acoustically transparent fabric, which basically means that the fabric covering the speaker is not going to alter your sound. It's a minor thing, but it's one of those things where when you're spending $400 on a speaker, you want every feature to be involved in helping make it sound as good as possible, and that's just another cool thing that sounds good and looks good too. It's a very nice looking front. Speaking of looks, let's talk about the design of the speaker itself. It's a pretty hefty speaker coming in at over 11 pounds. It's also a pretty good size. It's quite a bit bigger than the original Google Home, obviously, but that's to be expected because it has two bass drivers and two tweeters pushing the sound out. In fact, those two woofers are 4.5 inches each and the tweeters are 0.7 inches. So there's a lot of speaker inside the Google Home Max. Now, as far as controls go, obviously the main thing is going to be using your voice, but there's also a little bar on the top that you can swipe left or right to turn the volume up and down, and you can double tap it to pause your music. Very minimal controls. There's no markings on it. It's just a little line that tells you that, hey, this is the thing that you use to control it. 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to use your voice, but if there's just an instance where you want to turn the volume down or something, you can do it. And now occasionally, when you're playing the music really loud at max volume, you'll have to scream at Google to get it to answer you, hey Google, and it still sometimes doesn't seem to want to answer because the music is very loud, so you may have to turn it down with the touch bar. It's a nice feature to have, but it's just a very minimal design. On the back of the Google Home, you're going to find a little switch. You can turn that on and off to disable the microphone, so if you don't want anybody to hear you, turn that off. Google won't be listening anymore, or so they say. Who knows if the man is really listening or not. Also on the back of the Google Home, you will find the port to plug it in, a USB-C port, and a 3.5mm audio port, so you can jack in, play your music. If you have something that doesn't support wireless, you can still use the Google Home Max and you can blast your music to your heart's content. Speaking of the voice features, you can go back and look at our original Google Home review for a more in-depth look at how it works as far as voice goes, but I'll just say that in my experience, everything worked as expected. It controlled my smart home, which I only have a few smart home devices, but it controlled them just fine. Controlling my music works perfectly. And I gotta say, it is a fantastic experience as far as voice control. Hey Google, play NoFX.
Playing No K on Spotify.
Now, obviously, there's the big battle between Alexa and Google Assistant. Personally, I prefer Google Assistant, but Alexa is perfectly usable too. And I actually own an Alexa device in my house and I use it all the time. I use my Google Home all the time as well. It's going to be down to a matter of preference on the two. But I will say that if you buy the Google Home Max and you plan on using your voice to control it, which is the main way you're going to control it, it delivers a fantastic experience. So that brings us to the big question. Should you drop $400 on the Google Home Max? I personally think the Max is one of those solutions in search of a problem. If you're a true audiophile, you're probably going to go out and spend a lot more and get a higher end system. Yes, you can link two Maxes together and get a little bit more power, but now you're talking $800. If you are just a casual music listener, spending $400 on a smart speaker is probably more than you really need when the standard Google Home offers pretty good sound at a fraction of the price. But if it's in your budget and you want to get a really good speaker that sounds fantastic and offers voice control, the Google Home Max is definitely a good way to go, and it is worth the money. It's just a matter of if it's worth the money to you. Also, we're giving one of these bad boys away, so make sure to enter over at MakeUseOf.com. And once again, this has been Dave LeClaire, and we will see you guys next time.